Hello everyone and welcome to I Know You Know, your one-stop knowledge sharing platform for all things careers, life after high school, as well as opportunities that are available to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming back to the channel. And thank you so much for growing the channel. We are now on road to 300 subscribers. So thank you so much for your support. So today's video is dedicated to explaining the admission point score, also known as APS, as well as the grade point average, also known as GPA. And shout out to CPUT GPA for requesting this video. I hope I said your name correctly. Thank you so much for the request, and to everybody else, please keep the requests coming. I truly appreciate them and look forward to providing you with the content that you need. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. So what is the admission point score, or rather the APS? APS is used by a lot of institutions of higher learning, and they use this as a way to measure whether or not you are firstly able to get into the institution itself, but secondly able to study the program that you want. So you can look at it as a way of measuring whether or not you meet the minimum requirements of somebody who would get into a specific program. So this is normally used during the application process, and you would need to indicate what your APS score is when you are applying for certain programs. The other thing is it helps you know as well if you do qualify for certain programs, because imagine if you just didn't know what was required for each program and you just kept applying for stuff and you end up not qualifying for things. So it's also a way for you to see if you do meet the minimum requirements for a certain program. Please note, and I think a whole lot of institutions, if not all, put this down on their prospectuses, on their websites and their booklets, whatever. Just because you meet the minimum required APS is for a certain program, it doesn't mean that you are automatically in the program. So this is just a measurement of whether or not you meet it. If the program wants 30 students and 100 people meet the admission point score that is required, obviously they would need to still pick the 30 that they can fit in. So just be careful to not think that when you do meet the APS that you are now in the program. You still do need to apply, you still do need to fill in all the other things and give it your best shot. So keep that in mind. So what do they use to calculate your APS? So depending on when you are applying, your latest results will be used. So a lot of institutions of higher learning, you need to apply during your matric year. So what that means is you'll probably be using your grade 11 fourth term report, which is your final report. So you would then use the subjects on your grade 11 report to calculate your admission point score. Now, if you are applying beyond grade 12 and you already have your grade 12 results, you would then use your grade 12 results in order to apply for varsity, technicon, college, wherever you want to go. So how is it calculated? So the first thing I want to point out, as I've said, is that each institution, not each institution, but it does differ across different institutions, how the APS is calculated. But secondly, the APS required for different programs is different. So what I mean by that is even within the same institution, the APS you need for law won't be the same as the APS you need for engineering, won't be the same APS you need for humanities, won't be the same APS you need for health science. So you do need to firstly check exactly how the institution you're trying to apply to calculates the APS points, or APS. Secondly, you would need to also check what the program you want requires in terms of APS. So I've included in this video some examples of how different institutions and different programs do calculate their APS points. So let's get into it. So the first example I've given here is the TUT admission point score system. So they actually have a tool which is a step-by-step process of what you need to do in order to calculate and view your APS. So they actually help you calculate it. So the first thing you would do, which is step 1, is to select your matric type. You do know that in 2008 the school curriculum changed, so how your APS is calculated will differ across the two systems, as well as across the international system as well, because we all know that our schooling systems are not the same, and so even how your APS score is calculated would be different. Step 2 is to select your matric mark, your matric subject and marks. So they've got their home language, first additional language, mathematics, life orientation, and next subjects, and you can add more subjects. And then what you basically do is that you pick a mark, and I have already opened English home or chosen English home language, so you can see how that looks. And then in terms of the mark obtained, you would just let them know what mark you got. So between 80 100, between 70 and 80, between 60 and 70, etc. And you will realize that that mark corresponds to a certain APS. So this APS basically corresponds to the levels you would see on your school report, where 80 to 100 is a level 7, 70 to 80 is a level 6, etc, etc, etc. So that's how they calculate the APS. And then step 3 would be for you to select a course or field of study. So after you've picked all your subjects, you would then select a course or field of study that you want to study for. Step 4 is to view the report. Now what this means is they let you know what the minimum required symbols are for your desired program for the different subjects, and then they compare that with your marks, which you've just inputted in the previous slide, and then they tell you what your total APS is and what the course minimum required APS is, and then they will let you know if you have met the minimum APS required for the course or not. Obviously, if you don't meet the requirements, you must not waste your application on a course that you already don't meet the minimum requirements, because chances of them rejecting you are quite high. There might be some exceptions, I don't know in which case, but this would be the point where you go back to the drawing board and re-evaluate which course you want to study and see what other things do interest you. If you do meet the APS, the minimum required APS, then you would proceed to then apply for this particular course or degree. So this is a very nice tool for you to use prior to actually sending your application, because I've already mentioned earlier that it would be a real bummer if you just applied blindly to whatever course you saw and only to be rejected because you didn't meet the APS score. So tools like this allow you to actually know where you stand as far as the course you want to study is concerned. The second example I've included is the Northwest University APS score system calculator, and it pretty much is the same as the previous one you saw, TUT's one, whereby it's a tool that they've created where you pick your subjects and your mark, and then they let you know exactly how much you got. The third example I've included is UJ. So this is specifically for law, and they tell you that the APS, how they define APS is that it's a score used to determine whether a prospective student can be admitted to study a degree in the Faculty of Law. It is easy to calculate the APS. It is basically the sum of the achievement ratings for the 6 best prescribed school subjects. Each achievement rating is calculated on a sliding scale, that is the level 1 to 7 scale. Take note that the performance rating for subject life orientation is not taken into account in this calculation. See the next page for the full admission requirements and the APS scale. So the table there shows you what the requirements are for this degree. It's a bachelor's degree, it's 3 years, BA Law, BCom Law, and then at the bottom there they have LLB. And then the APS scale, as you can see, is 80% to 100%. and it has the different levels as well, as I've explained previously. So this is pretty much the standard way of calculating APS across most institutions. By this I mean allocating the levels as you would see them on your school report to percentages, and then using the levels as your APS points. Then what you do is you add those levels and you get your total APS score. Looking into another institution, I've looked at Wits as well, and the reason why I picked this out is because they actually have a different way of calculating their APS score, and I hope that this will highlight the fact that you still need to look at the specific institution that you want to apply to, because they might also be calculating it in a different way. So looking at Wits, what they do is you will see that on this table, firstly on top of the table, the last bullet point on top of the table says that the APS calculation is based on the best 7 subjects. So that's the first difference. Other institutions have said they take the top 6. Here they're saying they take the best 7 subjects, including life orientation. So that's the second difference, where other institutions exclude life orientation in the APS calculation. Wits actually includes life orientation. And looking into the table, which is looking into more detail of exactly how they calculate it, you'll see that the first column refers to the NSC scale of achievement. Those are the levels that you would see on your report normally, which coincide with the percentage you received, as you can see in the second column. Then in the third column, they show you the Wits APS, and the fourth shows the Wits APS percentage. And what you see here is that starting from the bottom, instead of 0 to 29% being level 1 and 30 to 39% being level 2, like the NSC, Wits actually has both those ranges as zeros in terms of APS scores. Then 40 to 49% is a 3, 50 to 59 is a 4, 60 to 69 is a 5, 70 to 79 is a 6, and 80 to, so it's up till 79. So from 40% to 79%, it's the same as the NSC calculation. However, you'll see that they then say their level 7 is actually 80 to 89, whereas the NSC level 7 is 80 to 99. And then Wits has an APS of 8, which coincides with 90 to 100. So obviously this would be different how you thought, like what your APS score is on the NSC system will definitely be different from what the APS score is at Wits, especially if you got either the lower ranges or some of the higher ranges, because the middle range is pretty similar. So they also have a different way of calculating maths and English, as well as life orientation and then other subjects. So for other subjects coincide with the scale that we just spoke about now, the Wits APS scale. Then life orientation, you'll see if you get 0 to 59% for life orientation, it's 0 on the APS, on the Wits APS scale. So you don't get any point for life orientation if you didn't get above 59%. Then if you start getting 60 to 69, you get a 1, 70 to 79 a 2, and so forth, 90 to 100 being a level 4, or yeah, a 4, a point of 4. Maths and English as well, if you get 0% to 39%, it's 0. 40 to 49 is a 3, 50 to 59 is a 4, 60 to 69 is a 7. So what they've done here, as you can see, is that they add 2 points to the normal level or the normal point that it would be. And they do this for 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you find that if you got between 90 to 100 for maths and English, you would get 10 points. So this is something to take note of because it can seem quite complex, but it's actually quite simple if you do follow the explanation that they give on their prospectus. Okay, so that's how the APS system works across different institutions. Once again, make sure you familiarize yourself with the APS system of the specific institution you want to apply to. Okay, so which institutions actually use APS points? Universities use APS points, as well as universities of technology / technicons. They do use APS points when you are applying to them. I have not come across a college that does use APS points. There might be some, and if they are, and if you know of some, please comment down below which colleges do use the APS, system. I'm not saying that for you to get into a college you just need to exist. No, you do still need to meet their requirements, just that they might not measure their requirements using the APS system. So moving on to grade point average or GPA. So what is a grade point average? So it's the average value which is calculated using the final marks that you have gotten for your courses or modules that you have completed towards your qualification. So think of your average that you get in high school, where they average out the subjects that you have completed, and they average them out based on the marks you've gotten for each subject. A grade point average score is similar. However, the difference between a GPA and just a normal average of your points is that it takes into account the time it takes for the course. As we do know, different courses in university require you to spend different time on them. So some courses, even though it's a semester course, you might find that you are required to spend 480 hours on the course, or other subjects are actually just 120 hours that you need to spend on the course. And you would see this by how often you have class for that course, how often you have tutorials for that course, and the work that's expected from you beyond class as well. So at home, how many hours are expected of self-study work of the course. So normally this is highlighted in the course outline, this is normally highlighted in the course outline, and you would be told exactly how much time you are expected to spend on the course, or at least good lecturers do inform you of this. So now you would imagine that getting 80% for a course for which you have to spend 480 hours to complete is not the same as getting 80% for a course which you need to spend 120 hours to complete. So that's where that's where the component of adding the hours comes into the GPA calculation. It's to factor in the fact that it might take a longer time to achieve 20% more on a course that requires more time. And I think that makes sense, to be quite honest. So how is it calculated? So different institutions might calculate their GPAs differently, similar to the APS scores. But what you need to know is the higher your GPA, the better. So shoot for the stars. It is normally a single value though, like a single figure, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Some institutions do get to like 5, 6. So you just need to familiarize yourself with how the GPA is calculated and what is the maximum GPA you can get. In some systems, the maximum you can get is 4, based on how they calculate their courses and based on how much time, how many courses you can do per semester, and based on how much time each course does take. However, in other institutions, it may go beyond 4, but you will see just now when I go through how it's calculated what I mean by that. What are GPAs used for? So firstly, they can be used similar to how the APS system is used to apply for institutions. So certain institutions might ask for a GPA instead of like an APS point, and you would pretty much do the same, which is just calculate the average you are getting for your subjects. If you are applying for a postgraduate qualification, you would use your GPA that you had in your previous qualification that you've already achieved in undergraduate. Secondly, GPAs can also be used to apply for jobs. You know, there are those jobs that still ask you what your marks were, etc. Some jobs might ask you just for a GPA instead of asking you for different courses and individual marks you got for each course. You might also be asked for your GPA when applying for like scholarships, learnerships, anything that you might apply for. They might ask for a GPA. It's literally just a measurement of how well you've performed in school. That's literally what a GPA is. So looking into how different institutions might calculate their GPA, let's have a look. So I have here the Cape Peninsula University of Technology GPA calculator. So similar to how other institutions that I've shown you have a APS calculator, some institutions also have a GPA calculator on their system just to make it easier for people to calculate their GPs, so their GPAs. So as you can see in the picture shown, you would need to choose your course name there where it says subject, and I guess where it says course, you'd be specific what course it is. You'd enter the credit hours and the grade that you got for that specific course, and then they would tell you how much you got in terms of your APA there at the top right corner. So this slide explains, it's also still from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, CPUT, and here is where they explain the calculation behind their tool. So obviously the tool, you would just enter your stuff, so it's like a plug and play type thing where you just enter your marks, you enter your courses, and then you just get a GPA. But here they're actually explaining how they calculate it. And as you can see, for step 1, they have different grade scales. So if you got an A, that's a 4. If you got a B, that's a 3, etc. Then step 2, you need to edit your credit hours. So as you can see in this particular example, chemistry has 3 credit hours, economics has 2, maths has 3, and English has 1. And the total credit hours for this particular person is 9. Then you enter your grades. So this is how much you got for that specific course. So this person got a B for chemistry, an A for economics, a D for maths, and a C for English. And as step 1 has indicated, each grade is allocated to a number. So B is allocated to 3, A is allocated to 4, D is allocated to 1, and C is allocated to 2. And what they do to get the weighted GPA is to multiply the credit hour by the grade. So for chemistry, that would be 3 times 3, hence it's a 9. For economics, it would be 2 times 4, that's 8, and so forth. And then you get your total weighted GPA. Then in step 3, you take that weighted GPA. As you can see, this person got 22. You take that 22 and you divide it by the credit hours, which was 9 for this person. And then they got 2.44, a GPA of 2.44. So that's basically how they calculate your GPA at CPUT. And I think it's pretty simple. You just multiply your credit hours by the grade you got to get your weighted GPA, and then you take your weighted GPA and you divide it by your credit hours. Okay, there you have it, an explanation of what APS is and what GPA is. I hope this information was helpful, and I hope that you are successful in whatever it is that you're going to apply for using this information. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this with at least 2 people that you think will gain value from this information. Thank you so much. Bye. See you in the next video.